Welcome to The Knowledge, the show that brings you all the key facts about issues directly affecting young people. As it's Fair Trade fortnight, we thought we'd talk to you today about fair trade. Recently, the Minister for International Development has announced that the government will send over £400 million a year abroad for overseas development. We wanted to know more about the issues of fair trade, how they affect young people's lives and what they can do to get more involved in such a vital issue. Okay, we're here now with Andrew Mitchell, the Shadow Minister for International Development, MP for Sutton Coldfield. Andrew, thanks very much for taking time out of the day to come and speak to us here. Can you talk us through what's happening at higher government levels in order to promote fair trade, the issue of fair trade?
Well, I think that promoting fairer and freer trade at the highest levels is all about trying to conclude the Doha trade round. The Doha trade round was conceived in the aftermath of the awful tragedy of 9/11. It was always meant to be a developmental trade round, and freeing up trade is incredibly important and really important too to poor people, particularly farmers in the developing world, that they can sell their produce and these barriers are broken down. But fair trade, which is a part of that, I don't believe there's a division between freer trade and fairer trade, is incredibly important. And I've always believed it's an authentically conservative thing, fair trade, because we all of us in our own way send signals to the market through what we buy about what we expect. For example, the Mitchell family only buy eggs that are free range. We won't buy eggs that come from battery chickens. That's our way of using our little purchasing power to send a signal to the marketplace. And fair trade is absolutely in that tradition. So I don't think it's a particularly party political issue. A Conservative central office went fair trade a couple of years ago. It went fair trade not because we told people to, but because the young people who work at central office decided that's what they wanted to do, and that's a very good guide to how the fair trade movement has developed. People believing passionately in fairer trade or freer trade too, and wanting to make their mark. And I think that's a process that will continue.
Okay, so you've just said there that fair trade's a predominantly conservative issue.
Not a predominantly conservative, but I've always thought of it as being authentically conservative.
Sorry. Does this mean that if the Conservatives win the next general election, there'll be any significant changes to the way the system works at the moment?
Well, I think governments and indeed oppositions respond to the wonderful work that Harriet Lamb and the Fair Trade Foundation have done. Indeed, I was speaking in Oxford City Hall with Harriet and others about Fair Trade fortnight only 3 days ago. But I think that whatever government is in power, the support of governments and also of British people for fair trade will continue. It's why we're one of the leading, if not the leading countries in the world which has embraced fair trade. And I'm absolutely certain that's going to continue. And under the ingenuity of the people running the Fair Trade Foundation, I suspect that it will broaden as well and embrace products that are not currently fair trade traded.
Obviously, the economy is a predominant issue at the moment, British economy especially. There's a lot of media attention going on about that. How are you going to persuade people to keep investing in fair trade products instead of maybe switching their focus to products they know are authentically British? How are you going to persuade them to keep up the very noble cause in face of maybe a bit of economic difficulty?
Well, you're right to spot the dangers from protectionism. And the point that I continually make is that a time of economic hardship and difficulty is not a time to turn our back on the developing world, but it's a time to underline and underscore the policies which we all support to try and do something about these huge discrepancies of wealth that exist around our world today, and also opportunity. But in an economic downturn, it's the poorest who suffer most. And that's why, for example, I'm very pleased to see the way in which the World Bank is targeting its help on the developing world at the moment and increasing its help because of the economic difficulties which are all around us.
So, simply bearing in mind that no matter how bad it gets for us, we're still quite well off. Is that what you're trying to say? In essence, still spare a thought for the little guy?
I think that promoting fair trade, using your own morality, to send a signal to the market about the sort of goods and services you want to buy is incredibly important. And I think people will be more conscious of it at a time of economic hardship, perhaps, than they are in a time of plenty.
Very simply, which is more important, the high-level work of fair trade that you and your colleagues are doing here in government, or people out on the street buying a fair trade jar of coffee from a supermarket?
Well, it's not really about government and people like me. It's about the signals that are sent into the market by the Fairtrade Foundation, which are noble and good and have been very successful, and the response of all of us, wherever we are, to that message. And Fairtrade Fortnight helps get that message across. And I think it's a message which has a really warm response from British people. Every year that we have Fairtrade Fortnight, that is a message which gets home, it builds every year, and I think it receives a tremendous support in Britain.
So just to wrap it up quickly, have you any advice for young people as to what they individually can do to help the fair trade system out?
I think that young people campaigning on issues has a real impact. We saw it in Make Poverty History originally, we've seen it in a whole range of different areas. And the point I want to make to young people, whether it's fair trade or anything else, is don't be apathetic about the causes you believe in. Speak up for them, and fair trade's a very good encapsulation of that.
Excellent. Andrew Mitchell, Shadow Minister for International Development, thanks very much indeed for talking to us. Thank you. Well, there we have it. There's the issue of fair trade, there's what the politicians are doing, and there's what we can do to do our bit for fair trade. Why not let us know what you're doing and what you think of all the issues surrounding fair trade? Drop a line to us at www.catch21.co.uk.